This is Dr. John Whitcomb talking about fasting, and the question is, why? I do better when I think of things at the 30,000 foot level, so I'm going to explain that first, and then I'm going to give you some books to read. Dr. Longo, who wrote the book The Longevity Diet, did a PhD thesis at looking at yeast. Yeast don't live very long, which just makes them easier to research. And he found that they live about 5 days. But if you starve them and don't provide them any calories, they hunker down and they live 10 days. Well, it turns out they have two sets of genes that Longo found out they turned on. And their scientific name is the RAS and the PKA system of genes. But you might think of them as basically your vacuum cleaner and your stem cell engine. But what they functionally do is when you're fasting, they say, oops, no calories. We have to hunker down so we live longer so that we get calories. And then we can reproduce. Our purpose to be on this planet is to reproduce and pass on our DNA. Longo found those same sets of genes, and other researchers are doing some of the work in earthworms. Same function. When you fast, you turn them on, you live longer. And in mice and monkeys and humans, they are the most preserved genes in all of creation. So when you fast, your body hunkers down so that it can live longer. And when you eat lots of calories, your body says, oh, I'm ready to reproduce. And we've seen vestiges and pieces of that. We have so many calories in Western civilization that our young girls are now going through puberty and getting ready to reproduce at age 10, when they're certainly not ready to reproduce. But they start having their menstrual cycle and they're getting functionally fertile. Well, the question is how do we apply that to us? So what it really comes down to is how do you do that in other ways? Now, Longo was very clever. He said, you can actually make a fast mimicking diet, but you can't turn on insulin. To succeed, you have to make sure you don't turn on insulin. So book number 1 to read is Longo's book, The Longevity Diet. His fast is 5 days, 800 calories, 50% fat, and 50% green vegetables. All right? By doing that, green vegetables, if you look back at our guerrilla research, you'd know that the majority of calories from green vegetables get turned into beta-hydroxybutyrate. Beta-hydroxybutyrate is also what you make when you chop up safe, healthy fats. So Dr. Longo's diet is basically a high-fat diet that has no impact on insulin. Has to be very low protein, less than 8% protein. That's good. Well, that same concept can be found with Joel Fuhrman. Joel Fuhrman is one of my heroes. He's written a book called Fasting and Eating for Health. That's the second book you can read. If you don't want to read Shelton's Fine Art of Fasting, which Fuhrman refers back to. But Dr. Fuhrman talks about going for 10 days, 10-day water fast, because he has a history of having healed himself of a terrible wound. And he's been telling patients for some 30 years now to take 10-day water fasts. And now I have 2. I must have 20 people who've accomplished 10-day water fasts. And I have been stunned at the responses they've gotten. What are they doing? They're turning off insulin. A keto diet is not a diet based on meat. Meat is a potent stimulus of insulin. You want to turn on your own ketones. You want to get your ketones up to 3. Well, how long can somebody fast? Well, this is not talking about starving. This is talking about rebooting your genes to live longer. Okay? I weigh 210 pounds. I'm 20% body fat. At that rate, 20% body fat, so I've got 40 pounds of body fat. That comes out to 140,000 calories. That would last me roughly 70 days. So me going 10 days, no problem. We've all have that in us. We can do that without dying. But what we're turning on is our anti-aging genes. Now, if you really want to have fun, the last book to read is Upton Sinclair's book. Upton Sinclair of Jungle fame. He had chronic illness, couldn't get better, finally gave up and ran into a young woman who just done a 10-day water fast and said she felt great. Upton Sinclair did a 10-day fast, and his mystery illness, whatever it was, we'll never know, went away. He proceeded to spend the rest of his life being an advocate for 10-day fasting, and his book is now available on Amazon for like $5. It's a wonderful read because he's a good writer. What will work for me? Every month I do a 5-day fast mimicking diet. I've not done a 10-day water fast. That takes a little more effort, and I'm still working, so I'm not sure I could easily do that. But probably everybody should consider doing Longo's fast mimicking diet 4 times a year. If you have diabetes, 6 times a year. If you're worried about cognitive decline or have cancer, 12 times a year. Every month, 5 days. Make it part of your lifestyle. This is Dr. John Whitkin talking about fasting for health and disease.